We're happy to announce that we have just launched the Curious Builder Collective. It is a community of builders looking to enhance their brands and businesses by tapping into the collective expertise of the talented builders in the Minneapolis area. It's a forum for asking questions, exploring ideas, and testing theories, all to help refine and apply these insights to your own business. Our group is a supportive community that rallies behind each other. If you're interested, please head to thecuriousbuilderpodcast.com. Under events, you'll find the Curious Builder Collective. We hope to see you there. Lake Society magazine is Minneapolis' premier target market boutique lifestyle and design publication. It embodies the unique lifestyles and design of the Minneapolis City Lakes neighborhoods. From Lake of the Isles to Lake Harriet, it showcases the best in local design projects by both premier builders, architects, and interior designers in this area. Lake Society magazine has the look and feel of a national publication with glossy covers, high-end finishes. It's mailed directly to upper bracket single-family homeowners in the City Lakes area, and it's the perfect local coffee tabletop publication. Subscriptions can also be available through the website lakesocietymagazine.com. Additionally, publisher and founder Karen Steckel has over 27 years in the local magazine publishing industry and has a passion for high-end photography and quality graphics. Her commitment to quality, visual simplicity, and beauty are strongly reflected in her beautiful Lake Society magazine. Today on the podcast, we had Renae Keller, and what a great conversation we have. We talked about really her point of view of how the industry has changed and evolved, which I think is a fascinating listen. You know, for 26 years, she's been observing the industry, and some of the art that we maybe had in the beginning has sort of been lost, but it's really encouraging to know that some of that's coming back. And I really enjoyed maybe the end of the interview the most. So stick around for that, or fast forward if you're getting bogged down in the middle, because, you know, I'd say burning the candles and using the china, which is really the main motto of Renae Keller as a person and as an industry, is, you know, be organic, you know, gravitate towards the things that you love and put them in the house. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I certainly did. And thanks for tuning into the Curious Builder podcast. All right, welcome to the Curious Builder podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today I'm joined with Renae Keller from Renae Keller Interior Designs. Thanks for coming to the studio, Renae.
Well, thanks for having me.
We've tried to get this a few times, but our busy schedules have finally allowed us to get together, and I'm excited to bring you in.
Well, thanks for having me.
We have had a few designers on in the past, and you and I had chatted a little bit before coming onto this one that I thought it'd be fun to do something a little bit different. We always like to highlight a business, and we'll get to that. But for the audience listening, I kind of want to talk about and just get your perspective on the design industry. You've been in the business for 25 plus years, and I'd love to just hear your viewpoints of how it's changed, kind of what you see today, and we'll just kind of go kind of from there.
Yeah, the industry has definitely changed. We were just talking about this at the office. We used to, you know, take catalogs of furniture and go make copies and just stand there for hours and flip through it. And then now we only look at screens all day long, and we save it on files, and then we email it. We don't even print it, barely. So it's the way we're delivering our messaging and our vision to our clients is very different. The retail industry is very different. There are so many more options for people to see and to gain themselves versus only having a designer get for them. So it's not really to our advantage. There's also there's showrooms. There's not as many showrooms.
Do you think what do you think led to the absence of the showrooms? Do you think just as whether it's social media or just digital media that everyone is gaining so many of their images and inspirations from, that the need to go into places physically has stopped? Or what do you think led to showrooms shutting down? Because we still need, as the builder and the designer, we still need to source the materials. We still need to order them. We still need to obviously tangibly put them into our homes. Is it just that, I mean, what's your perspective on the showrooms kind of declining?
I think they don't need as many pieces on the floor. I think they can see one finish on one of their items and then try to envision that, and then be able to order it by seeing it on another model. And they just don't need to house every finish and every style. And I think that people can send things everywhere. They don't have to physically be in every showroom all the time.
Do you think that has been a detriment, or do you think it's just the age we live in? I get the sense from our previous conversations that there's a part of it that you feel nostalgic loss towards. I know there's a lot of pros and cons, but what's your feeling about where we are compared to where, we used to be?
Yeah, there are pros and cons, definitely. I think that there is some efficiencies with the COVID times. I think we have been forced to figure out how to do things more efficiently, how to meet via Zoom. I think there's a lot of things that we have benefited from, but there's also things where we had to do, and I'm like, I don't want to ever do that again. It just didn't feel the same.
I'll give me an example.
I guess, showing people materials via Zoom. We would literally actually drop off materials at people's doorsteps and then hold it up, and or actually we would
During
give.
COVID, you mean?
Yeah, actually doing
Like
COVID.
outside their front door or the
Yeah,
screen door?
actually we would drop off samples to their house, and then they would bring it in their house, and then we'd have a set of samples too. So we'd be able to talk and hold it up. It just was a little bit more difficult, took more time, but we did what we could. But you can't replace having clients come in and look at all of the samples with all the fabrics and have you explain why there's a texture on here and how that works with it, and see it right in real time.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
that makes sense. Yeah, no, absolutely. How, I mean, I guess how, if people don't know any better, I mean, it depends on the age of the client, right? So if you have repeat clients that, used to design a certain way and now it's different, do you ever see the clients commenting on it? That it feels different, or has it been sort of a subtle shift that unless you're in it every day, maybe they don't kind of realize that?
I think if you have repeat clients, it's a lot easier because they know you, they trust you. They're like, I know you know the color that I like. So that is a wonderful thing for a designer, and it's actually more efficient. And if you have a new client and they're actually a younger client, they actually don't need to see and feel things quite as much. I feel like they're just easy. It's more acceptable to order something online. They're just used to it.
They've sort of been trained.
Yes, yeah.
hmm I mean, I can see the pros and cons. It's interesting because we've had recent guests on, and we've been talking a lot about AI on the podcast.
Hmm.
We've seen it mostly just from a language model, whether it helps writing blogs. And I noticed on your website, you have, you publish about every 2 weeks,
Hmm.
a blog. How long have you been doing that? And how do you capture maybe some AI technology to help you with that? Or how are you? What's the inspiration, and what are you hoping to gain behind, sort of your let's call it marketing through blogging?
Yeah. So we started being very active in blog writing probably about 6 months ago. And what I wanted to do was highlight products that we like to use. And we have been going into some immersive experiences for, let's say, the House of Roll or Fish of Pickel. And we have been starting to go on these immersive trips, whether it's in Chicago or New York. And that has been such a welcome experience. We used to do that all of the time. And so what we've been doing is speaking about them. And those are the products that we'd like to use. And those are what we want our clients to use. So if a client's looking for faucets, things like that, we want them to look at what we have been learning about them and how we want to use them in their projects.
I mean, that makes sense. You're getting a firsthand look at wherever these showrooms are, rather than maybe being in each state. You're traveling to
Hmm.
a dedicated sales center for the United States, or a regional
Yeah.
one. And I'm guessing most of the time you're not bringing your clients on those. It'd be a group of designers, builders, architects, or who's going on these kind of experience tours.
Yeah. Designers and builders and architects. Yes. And we're just learning about, what's behind the wall and what's the newest technology coming out, and what are the different tiers of finishes that work with each other. If you want to go to the top tier in the primary bath, if you wanted to go to the basic tier in the lower level, how can all of these things work together by using the whole House of Roll, you know, uh, company?
In before, so how long have these tours kind of been, a forefront of your business? I mean, it sounds like you used to do them a lot more locally, or how
We
does this fit
Yeah, so
into kind of the
they
career?
just started. Let's see, it was last January. Prior to that, we haven't been going on to them for 3-4 years. And then prior to that, we were going on all the time. We would, go out to California for signature kitchens. We would be invited all the time. So sometimes even too much. We would say, "All right, you're going to this one. We can't be gone this long."
Right.
And so, and it's wonderful because you learn so much. You are the expert. We know how to, if there's an issue, we can ask our reps, we have this problem. Can you help us? We know that you have a sous vide in your product line. What would you do here? And they are there to help us. They have their product knowledge like that.
And I get invited on a fair amount of these trips as
Mm-hmm.
well. And just with young kids, I usually turn them down, but I would
Mm-hmm.
like to go as the kids get older. Maybe I'll bring them with. But one of the questions that I have for you is, let's say you're listening to this podcast and you are, kind of an up and comer designer.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the best way to kind of get invited on these trips? Is it through your local manufacturer's rep? How do people find out about some of these?
Yeah, I think being involved in some of the groups, I would say Wink would be a good one, ASID, working with your local showrooms such as Ferguson or All Inc., things like that. So just being involved with the people that are specifying them, and always, talking about things, reaching out, asking questions, and just, keeping in contact with your people no matter where they go. A lot of times it's a pretty small community.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I get a lot of requests, usually through All Inc., just because that's who I seem to do a lot
Yeah.
of my purchasing with. So
Hmm.
Ross, the general manager, is always saying, "Hey,
I
we're
know.
doing this with Signature. It sounds like it's a pretty, amazing experience." And I think from their standpoint, I mean, he has been on it so many times.
Hmm.
He's kind of like, "Hey, I'd love for someone else to go and see it, especially for those of us that have not gone or haven't had the opportunity to go." And
Yeah.
having just gotten back from, KBiz and, the International Builder Show, I mean, it's just overwhelming, going to
Hmm.
the Builder Show. There's a million plus square feet of showroom floor and 100,000 plus, builders and designers. But it's not only, I think, is it important to see and kind of stay ahead of what's coming up and what's out there,
Hmm.
but I think a big part of it is the relationship building. And I know that's kind of been important to your career later on. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about
Hmm.
that. But I would imagine even when you're working with or going with other designers on these trips,
Hmm.
how are you guys talking to each other? I know like builders, they have builder 20s and there's a lot of networking groups
Hmm.
for builders. What kind of groups do designers have to sort of ping each other and say, so it's not just a bunch of designers sort of always not sharing or talking to each other. Is there a pretty I guess, warm community among designers to ask ideas and kind of collectively, build each other's brands? Or what is that relationship like?
Yeah, I would say locally, I don't know of any actual official groups. We do have, I just had somebody ask me yesterday in a text, do you know of a high-end metal um, cabinetry line that I could use at a garage? And that was just a designer that I know. And I responded, unfortunately, I don't. So if anybody knows of one, please let me know. And then I'm also part of a coaching group that we have, I think it's 100 designers that are in a boardroom. It's called the Pearl Collective, and it's amazing. And so what I'm doing, actually, I'm leaving Saturday for the boardroom. We have two um, conferences, or I think I would call it a conference, a year. And we have a Slack channel, and we can ask any question about HR. We can talk about, does anybody know of a table that can collapse and wash dishes? Uh, and anything from a job description to, what would you, pay this person that does this, this, and this. It is
That's amazing. How
amazing.
long have you been a part of that?
So I just joined again. So I was a part of this group between 2017 and 2021, took a break, and then I just joined in January again.
And I assume it's across the country then?
Yes. And
Okay.
yeah, across the country. And I think there's some from other parts of the world.
That's amazing.
It
What
is
a
amazing.
phenomenal
So it's Gail
resource.
Doby, and I have kept in touch with them, some members, and I'm so excited to collaborate. And there are people there that have the same, small business with 5 people. There are people that have 50 people. There are people that are general contractors in their state and also run a design business. Some have they have super high end. Some are, want, medium, you know, kind of in the medium realm. And so there's just all different things, and it's just an open community.
That's amazing.
And there's just, 3-year plans for your your trajectory, and it's just an amazing group. So I'd highly recommend it.
So a lot of resources. I assume there's some sort of a sign up or a yearly fee or some sort of
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It definitely. And then each month there's a call that you can hop on. And if you don't make it, it's recorded.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
you can certainly gather that information.
We were talking earlier on that, earlier on in your career, you felt like there was maybe more community or that, more showrooms, more activity. And it was funny because when I was reading some of the notes prior, I was thinking, I actually feel like that's coming back. And I could be biased because, even the podcast that we're recording this on right now is because of, things like the Contractor Coalition or other
Mm-hmm.
podcasts and kind of this community of really open-minded, I mean, honestly, open-hearted individuals that just want to share and gather with other entrepreneurs. And basically the rising tide floats all boats. Just to simply, I want to share what I have. I want to ask you questions, and maybe together we can elevate our business. Do you feel that sense of energy in Minneapolis specifically? And then do you think it's also happening across the country, and why?
Yeah, I do feel like it's coming, or that is coming back. I feel like people are yearning for connection, especially after what we lost when we were in COVID. What I thought in COVID, I hated. Well, that's not a great word to say. I disliked having the faces covered. I wanted to see people smile, and I missed hugging. So that was a big thing for me. But now that we are kind of back in our A game, it has been a joy to have people over for a happy hour or a coffee to connect. And I'm a big connector. I love that. I love to share things. I think we all can. There's enough room for everyone to have enough business. And if it doesn't work in my time frame, then it's in somebody else's. And so that is just definitely important to me. And I feel like it is coming back.
It was funny. You just mentioned about hugging and seeing people's facial expressions. I had, do you remember for a while there, like people weren't shaking hands, right? And remember that was being predicted that like shaking hands would like, nobody would shake hands anymore. And like it was going to be a lost art. And it's funny because I remember my grandpa, teaching me how to shake a hand, like firm, look them in the eyes, no limp fish.
Yep.
You can tell a lot about a person by how how they handshake, honestly. And so it was just so funny to me that that part was sort of taken away in business. And now, looking back, it almost seems laughable where we are today. It's like that was a period of time. Everyone that was there very much remembers it. But it's kind of funny how, time sort of erases some of those things. And I don't think that, that obviously could not stop centuries of, traditions, if you will.
Yeah, and it was scary. We
Mhm.
didn't know, and I remember teaching our kids that also. And also, when we hold up a glass, we look everybody in the eye and we say cheers, whether it's a glass of milk, water, wine, or beer.
Yeah.
And we always thought that was pretty fun. But it's just the way you greet people and talk to people and interact with people.
It was pretty funny because one of the things that, for those that don't know Renae, one of the first times that I met you, which isn't actually that long ago, well, I've been aware of your brand for, decades now. I think my first meaningful interaction with you was at the Midwest Home and Design Awards,
Mhm.
maybe 2 years ago. And you have a very warm, inviting personality about you when you first meet you. But I also noticed right away that you also seem very competent and very efficient. And it was interesting because like as a builder now, like I appreciate both those qualities because you can have someone that's very warm and inviting and that draws you in, but then if that person doesn't help you get the house built or
Mhm.
the designs selected, it becomes sort of not as helpful. But if you're not warm and inviting, people don't want you there either. So to balance both of those, looking on, I feel like you have both sides of the coins, and it looks like it's obviously served you very well in your career.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up is because when we walked upstairs, Joel, my recent office manager hire, you walked in, gave him a big hug. And I was thinking in my mind, like, wow, she's very friendly. I got a handshake, but someone she's never met before, she gave a hug. Like, what's that all about? Well, and it turns out you've known Joel for a long time
Yep.
because your kids know each other
Yep.
extremely well.
Yep. Absolutely. To the point where he's like, your son is my, my third son.
Which is hilarious to me. So anyway, watching that unfold was actually pretty funny to me.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about one of the things that I really enjoyed was the way you view interior designs. And you have it listed on your website. Two things that stuck out to me. One was that interior designers are problem solvers. And then the other is that interior design is not a transactional business, it's a relationship business. And I just wondered if you could kind of speak to both of those points.
Yeah. You know, we all love the creativity side of it, and we love having, furniture and pretty things. And that definitely is part of interior design. But each day we walk through, what our clients want. So the first thing is we talk with our clients and we say, why are you doing this? Is this a lake home? Is this your empty nest home? And we try to get as much information as possible. And so this is where also building our thoughts and why, and we want to know our clients. So we get really I would say connected with our clients, and if we ever have any questions down the road, we write down a vision of what the whole project is going to be. And if there's ever any questions down the road, we come back to that vision. We say, what did we say here? And that's kind of our North Star. And it's so relational, excuse me. And we want to work collaboratively with our builder and our architect. We want to be brought in as soon as possible. And I don't want to be an architect. I don't want to be a builder. And I don't think the architect wants to be the designer, and neither does the builder. Everybody wants to be told what to do in the right time. We don't want to miss our deadlines. We want actually a schedule, so we know that we're prepared and the client does not feel rushed. That is the main thing. And if there's a delay, we need to know about it. And, we're trying to get all the best information given to you so you can put it in, and we're all on top of things. If is an issue, which there always are issues that come up, things are delayed or they're discontinued, then we solve that problem. There's always an option, and we can all put in our minds, and we can say, okay, we could do A, B, or C, put it together to show the client and say, what do you think? And then we make our choices and we move on.
How often do you think one of the things that we've been trying to do the last couple of years with mixed success is, and I understand the reason why, and I'll maybe preface this with, it'd be nice to have all the selections, and shockingly, the plan completely done and everything ordered before you start. In your career, why do you think that, and I'm not going to say the norm, but what percent of projects have you been on? And we can use remodels too, I guess, but I would imagine with remodels, it's probably a higher percentage. And where I'm going with this is the analogy of, why do we feel like we need to build the airplane while we're flying it? And, so often as a builder, I've been guilty of this for decades where, I'm so excited to get them in architectural design, get it in for permit because I want to get this in the schedule. I want to get building, and we'll figure out some of the design, especially if you're in a cost plus model, you can figure this out while you're going, but it's just not to the same level. The trade partners can't really bid a plan accurately. The client doesn't really know what it's going to cost. But yet the other model is the client does have to trust the entire team because you have to spend 3 to 6 months to 8 months to a year doing all of those selections, getting everything queued up. Then you price it out. But there's kind of this disconnect between when you price something out and really know what it costs, which I can't do without all the actual information, versus also giving the client a guideline of where they're at. Because if you just design with no budget, it's going to come in over budget inevitably.
Right.
And then, so anyway, I just wanted to ask you more of an open-ended question, which I poorly framed, which is really just in your 26 years plus, how realistic is it to have every selection done ahead of time? And is there a compromise in the middle?
Oh, goodness.
It's a big question.
Yeah, it is a big question. And we're just working on a project right now out of state, and we were told that we had to have all the selections made within 6 months, and it's 10,000 square feet. And that is what they wanted, and it didn't happen. And it was just a very unique project. And
how far did you get in selections?
We got, I would say, 80%. And for the materials. And it just was it's a third home for the client. It's a destination home. It's not a lake home. It's not a main residence. It's in a golf community. So it's just different. And so a lot of guest rooms, and we're feverishly trying to work on it. And so massive. So we did do our best, and then it was a lot of the layouts and things like that. But they're just still ordering things now. And so it's just going to show that there are some things that were running low on stock, things like that. So then they wanted all the lighting also, which were like, we didn't have all the cabinetry. So and there's a ton of cabinetry too. So it was very difficult. And it was a little bit different of the way that the architect worked. So we were all working together and we made it work, and we are making it work, and it will be installed in August. And so all the while we're still trying to do furniture. So there's that part of it too, which the architect and the builder aren't thinking of that. So we're just trying to get our client to, sign up on all of that with our budgetary concerns with that too.
I mean, I think it's a little bit like a recipe, right? I mean, you don't dump in all 50 ingredients right from the very beginning.
Right.
I mean, it's a timing thing. Sometimes you have to wait till something's partly cooked. You have to, wait till it's stirred. I mean, it's funny because I'm talking about cooking and I rarely do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's analogous
It
that you
is.
can't do it all right in the beginning. And I'm challenged all the time by some of my peers and people that I look up to that, they won't start a project till it's 100% designed and selected. And I think that's admirable. And I certainly try, and I've been trying to do that to the best of our ability. But, to your point, it's a long process. Some of these homes, a 10,000 square foot house, might be a year and a half, 2 years to build, depending on, its complexity and details. In your past, I mean, I'm guessing you've done it every single scenario. Meaning, I bet you've done selections while you're literally doing things.
For
right?
sure.
For sure. I didn't know if that was just a Minnesota thing or if that's a builder thing in general. Yeah, I guess any observations on that?
Yeah.
Because you do stuff out of state as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, a lot of times it's, what is it? Appliances, plumbing, location of lighting, and materials. Get those things done, at least the floor materials, and try to get that, and then come back and refine
The layers.
the layers, and then countertop materials, and then cabinetry. So, we have our cadence, and that seems to work. But if it's if we're starting to deal with a real specialty product, if we're doing slabs on walls and things like that, then we're starting to really refine things, and we need to put those on hold. And if they're coming from Italy, or if they're coming in from South America, then we really need to figure out how many do we need. And there's just so many different layers, and there's thousands of decisions, and we're here to make them, but we need to have the trust in the client. And if we're just starting to work with the client, we may not have that trust yet. And it just takes a while to build that.
Maybe this question would be better reframed in, if you were to advise your sister and or a close personal friend of how to go through the process to best utilize the architect, the builder, and the designer, what are some general guidelines that you would give them? Given that you've worked with everyone, I know how I would view it from a builder's point of view, but I'd be kind of curious to hear this from an interior designer's point of view.
Yeah. I guess I would hire everybody together and have that group together, talk about the overall vision, and have them all agree upon it. Get your budget as close as you can, and see where your wow spots are, or the areas that you're really going to curate, and go from there. I think you could make your selections, 80% of your selections, where are your specialty spots? Is it the kitchen, or is it going to be, your outside areas, depending on where you live, or I guess you could do it here too. So I think that there's, what kind of house is it? Is it your 5-year house, or is it a your house for the rest of your life? Things like that. So I think there's a lot of things that can be put into that question. It's a very large question, but I would say if you could do the 80-20 rule, I think that would be great.
I know, I completely agree with you. I think having the team all together, it's something that we've done now for years.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that you would not do that. And I just think it also, client experience is something that I'm going to be spending a lot more time over the next really 6 months to a year, really focusing, develop like a prescriptive method of
Absolutely.
what a client experience is. And, I think in the past, just having good role models around me, I mean, there's certain things you just do organically. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying everyone can follow, if everyone could just follow a recipe and be the world's best cook, then you'd have a bunch of people that are the world's best cook. So clearly there must be some art in what you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
I'm going to have to take a cooking class after this because I'm talking a lot about things I don't know. But anyway, where I'm going with this is we do a lot of things for clients. For me, one of my love languages is gift giving, and so I tend to like to surprise people. I like to give meaningful gifts, and because we don't take on a lot of clients, I like as I get to know them, I like to enter their space a little bit and try to surprise them with something. It also takes a ton of energy, and sometimes people are hard to buy gifts for. Where I'm going with this is, little touch points. It could be something simple. I was, somewhere, doesn't matter really where, and I was looking at something, and one of the people in the place came up to me and said, "Sir, while you're waiting, could I get you an espresso?" I'm like, I didn't really even want one, but I'm like, yeah, I'll take one. And the point at client service. And so I've been thinking about that since that interaction. Something super simple, right? It's happened to most people many times. But I've been thinking about it, like why in building, interior design, and architecture, we do it in a lot of other ways, right? Um, but could we actually have a recipe or a menu that we follow through, and we maybe even share it with the client before we start? Use it as part of your sales. Like here is the map of success.
Hmm.
Because we often do talk about, let's just talk about Minnesota specifically. There's a lot of good builders here.
Hmm.
And depending on what tier you're at, and there's a lot of good interior designers, there's a lot of good architects. So why are you choosing, in my case, Mark Williams Custom Homes
Yep.
or Renae Keller? And
Absolutely.
ultimately it comes down to relationship and to the journey and who you trust and feel comfortable with. And if you can demonstrate to them, like, hey, here's my prescriptive path of how whether it's your biweekly meetings or just explaining to them really what you're doing for them, I think that would go a long way towards client quickly understanding who they want to work with.
Yeah, people like to know what to expect. And, we just had a meeting too about client experience and internal process. And we just were talking about having the best or client experience this year ever, and how to document that, how to let them know what to expect. And it's always fun right at the very beginning, but then there's that lull in the middle when we're documenting everything, which is super important. And we're hourly, and so they still get bills, and they're like, "We haven't seen you. We're still getting bills. How, this is frustrating." And at that time, we like to still be in contact with them, saying we are still documenting, all of the tile, just to let them know so they're not surprised by their hourly billing during that time. But it is so important. If any of those things are not documented correctly, there could be a lot of problem at the end of the project.
And timing too, right? I mean, if I've seen it before where people wait till the end. Builders are guilty of this all the time. You hear about change orders, and
Hmm.
now there's online tracking systems that help us track these
Sure.
as best we can in the moment. But for instance, we just had a design meeting before you came in with a client on a new build with the architect, and the client left, and for an hour after the client was gone, the interior designer stayed on and was chatting with the architect through details. Those are billable hours, and they're really important hours,
Hmm.
because a lot of the conversations that you and I can have, not that we are afraid of what we would share in front of the client, but you and I can really share each other's opinion
Hmm.
and just say, hey, this is what I think would be best for the project. And I always tell my clients, you don't want a bunch of yes people around you. Like, I
Hmm.
like people that will fight for their idea and their ideal, because I feel like the project becomes better. And sometimes it's okay to do that in front of the client, obviously in a respectful way,
Sure.
but it's probably easier when the client isn't there seeing people play tug of war
Right.
over a stone mantle choice, or is the ceiling going to be TNG, or is it going to be a shiplap,
Right.
or nickel gap? I mean, half the time they don't even know what we're arguing about, and it's a really
Correct.
minor detail, but maybe you and I are passionate about it for different reasons.
Right.
So
Like, I mean, exactly. And I think that you don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. At the same time, somebody had a vision, and whether, the furniture needs that, or the overall, ceiling in the next room needs it, things like that. So, or if it's just trying to keep within budget and having it look nice and clean, then that's what we need.
this episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19 and a half years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella Windows. Find more at pellanorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella Windows. This episode is brought to you by Adaptive, the software for builders that automates draws, budgets, and bookkeeping with AI. For over a year now, I've been partnered with Adaptive, and they've just been an amazing game changer in terms of efficiency in our time and all our bookkeeping. From the time we get an invoice, we import it into their system. The AI codes it, cost codes it, job codes it. All we have to do is review it, pass it through the people internally in the office, all digitally, and then it gets approved and paid all via ACH. It's becoming extremely fast and saving us countless hours a day and a week. When it comes to draws, all of our budgets now are set in Adaptive as well. So now when we cost code against the draws, we can do our change orders, and then with a click of a button, we can submit these draws to our title companies or to our homeowners for faster payment. If you're looking to save time, and if you're looking to be accurate, I highly recommend Adaptive. Additionally, if you'd like to listen to one of their founders share the story of Adaptive, you can listen to episode number 15 on the Curious Builder podcast. What are some important things that you've learned that you think are key to a client's experience being good?
I would say having them come in, see our space, show them how we like to work with our clients. We have a giant pin board. It's actually a wall behind us. When you walk in, you see your whole house. And sit down, and we have our space. We have a fireplace in our studio, so you can kind of see this is the height that you would be at. It's not the same fireplace, no, but this is get the feel of it, and this is what a 30-inch chandelier looks like. It's very full, so it's very it feels heavy. This is what a 24-inch chandelier looks like, but it's very it's it's metal, and it feels very, very slim. This is a sconce height that we usually use. For this sconce, I would go higher. This is the drapes that I usually do, but we put a little leading edge tape on it. This is what it looks like. This is what I mean. There's just so many examples like that. So that is an easy one-stop shop that we like to provide for our clients. Our clients are usually professionals. They're busy, or they don't enjoy doing this, or building the home. That's not what they want to do all the time, but they do want it. And if you're there for a year and a half, 2 years, it really is helpful. So we try to keep regular meetings, and we try to have the decision makers all be there at all times. So if you're going to have a say in something, we want you to be there.
That is excellent advice right there. It's funny because I have a client that we dealt with before, and one of the decision makers was never at any of the meetings. And yet it was a little bit of the tail wagging the dog. You'd have the next meeting and the plan would completely change. And we were saying, where is this coming from? Like, when we're in the meeting getting real-time feedback, this is not what we're seeing. And then they explained that, so-and-so was influencing it. And sometimes they're not even it could be your son and daughter. It could be, oh, my sister built a house in Tennessee, and she really thinks we should do this. Or, obviously as a professional, sometimes the most difficult client to work for is someone that also has a professional, as a family member. Yeah. However, I will say that a lot of times they can actually be a big help too. So I guess it depends, right? I've had it before where someone else was like a builder and like, no, that's exactly right. And they almost help guide the client when they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's setting boundaries when you start working with your clients and parameters. And what we usually say is, once you start working with us and you give us, some of your ideas, and we start working with you, shut down your Pinterest board. Stop looking. Stop asking. We're your team now, so ask us. If it's not like you can't ever look, but if you need help communicating something, or if you're not getting what you want, or we're not seeing it, then let's talk about it. But you need to ask. We're here to help you. You are our main, you're our project. We need to get the right thing put in front of you.
Well, I think feedback, instant feedback is super important. So, in my haste and just trying to be efficient, through the COVID years,
Hmm.
an architect would send us a plan and they would say, "Hey, this is kind of the latest update. You want to take a look? Do you have any comments? Do you have anything that you want to look at?" And I'd be look through it and I'd say, "It's great." Knowing that the client is excited and anxious, I'm like, let's send this on. And almost exclusively, every single architect, designer I've ever met with, and I understand why they said, well, I'd like to meet with the client in person. And I used to not understand why, but now I do, because
Hmm.
seeing how you physically react physically to the plans, like I can read it in your body language, your
Hmm.
emotion, your face, all those things are super informative to me. But even more so to the architect, because now they are like, okay, this person's very passionate about this. Where if it ends up just being emails, and Zoom is okay. I mean, sometimes you just have to do it
Right.
and it is great and that's fine. But man, there is nothing better than an in-person meeting to really capture the excitement or the disappointment too. And those are equally as important, because we need to know also what you don't want in your house.
Right. Or if like we may know that there's that special piece that wanted to be in the entryway that, was a Windsor bench that needed to be there. And now all of a sudden it's not going to fit. There's a wall that the niche is not big enough. And we'll be like, that's not going to work.
We had a client just actually recently where the home is all designed and he tends to hold on to stuff, and he had a cabinet that he wanted for his office and it didn't line up with the door. So he told my framer in the field to change the door from a 3.0 door or 2.8 door to a 2.4 or 2.6 door.
Mm,
Well, but then what he didn't realize is the architect, rightly so, had the door centered on the hallway. And so then once the framer changed it, he went back there and he's like, "Why is that door up?" He's like, "Well, because you told, and we told him about it ahead of time."
right.
Well, now as it turned out, his wife is like, "We're getting rid of that file cabinet because I want the door centered on the." So now we're changing it back to what it was before, but it's just more of a humorous point that,
Yes.
we have to educate them. And sometimes in this case, we told them it's not going to be centered. He said, "Do it anyway."
Yep.
Then we did it. He's like, "No, I guess I wanted it
Then you
back
got
the other way."
then you got
Luckily, it was only a door buck, so it's not that big of a deal. But anyway,
then you got in trouble.
then he got in trouble. At least the missus was able to correct it, because we were not.
Oh goodness, yeah. There are things like that, and people just need to make choices.
Yep.
And sometimes it takes a while to let go of things, and sometimes you just need to be okay with it, and doesn't matter. So, yeah, you are mediating some of these choices. And bottom line is, it is their home, and you want it to feel like their home.
Do you find that, how often do you have to remind yourself that, this is their home? Because there's sometimes where you feel, I have recently run into this where I felt very, very strongly. And I usually tell my client, like, "Hey, if you want a purple polka dot house, like I will build it for you. I will tell you three times that it's a bad idea. But on the
Hmm.
fourth time, I'm here to work for you. And if that's really what you want, we'll do it." And I finally had to put that theory to a test, and it didn't end well. I basically had to just back off and say, "Okay," I said, "do you want my opinion, or you just want me to do what you're telling me to do?" And he said, "I just want you to do what I'm telling you to do." Okay. That's as clear as it can be.
Yep.
And I've never actually had it that clear before in my 20 years of building. Have you run into situations quite like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's some clients that are just strong-willed and really want what they want. And I've had some thoughts and ideas about layouts and different rooms and scale. And I have brought it up, and then I've let it go, and I've brought it up again. And then the third time is a charm, and I'm going to bring it up. This is my third time that I'm going to be bringing it up, and I guess we'll see.
Oh, so you got
Um,
one coming up right
yep,
now.
yep, yep. And it just is my original thought process when I was looking at the room, and I guess we'll see. And if after that, I'll just let it go.
It's
Um,
interesting, and maybe I should be more retrospective, or introspective, I guess is the right word, for looking at if people are giving me advice. Namely, probably my wife, I guess, who's listening to this. She's like, "You should listen to me the first time, not the five times." But outside your spousal relationships, I'm trying to think of like how often people get to go into your life and really tell you something. And I'm thinking, let's say a personal trainer. I mean, if you hire a personal trainer and you want to run, let's say, a 6-minute mile, drop 4% body fat, and whatever your goals are, it doesn't matter. But then if you don't listen to the personal trainer, like, why did you hire them?
mhm,
And so sometimes I get a little confused, and not that it's that black and white, but they are hiring you and I to help them build their home.
mhm.
And I get it. In matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock. And sometimes if you get to this principle thing, and they think it's a style, and for you it's a principle, it becomes kind of this rock and a hard place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was with this particular client. And anyway, I lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And not every project is going to be, and I don't know, photographable,
Yep.
or not every angle will be photographable. And for me, I don't do the same type of home all the time.
Hmm.
I like variety, and I love to know that every client is happy in all of my photos. Um, I like a certain style myself, and that could never be replicated by anybody else in another home. There's reasons for why things are where they're at. I mean, I could tell a story by each portfolio picture that I have on the website, and that's kind of what the joy is for me. Is I could say, oh, this person just does not like to see any clutter anywhere. And I could never be that person, of course, because I'm a little bit more of a curated person, having things out, and a little bit of a mess too sometimes. So to be honest, so I'd have to quick clean up before everyone came
You know
over.
what's funny about that is the people that can really that are very, OCD and very great at keeping minimal, they're the ones that could have the shelves, the floating
For
shelves, that
sure.
just everything organized. They don't want it because to them that's color. I know because I'm married to one. My wife is
Mm-hmm.
very, very, great lines, kind of got of a Japanese Scandinavian style, which
Mm-hmm.
I love.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny, none of our cabinets have glass in them. She wants it put away, even though behind our cupboards it's as organized as could be.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it kind of ironic that the people that could pull it off don't want it.
They're like scared to, like, if something was out of order, it would just bug them and they just can't deal with it.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, I appreciate the people that are really, really organized. It's not my particular skill set, but I do admire it.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think organic, something that's real. I
Mm-hmm.
think when things are real, to your point, I like your word, curated. I'm going to have to use that for my style.
Yeah. And I think different stages of life also, when you have, a multitude of kids, it's not possible. You're exhausted. And I used to blame a lot on that, but it still carries on for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for
They're
sure.
older, and I still can't use that as an
One of the things that I had a question on was you had mentioned earlier about helping the client decisions experience. How do you as a designer handle sign offs? And as a builder, I mean you work. So I work with a handful of designers,
Mhm.
and as the builder, it seems like designers often gravitate towards the builder's process. But you've worked with at this point probably 100 builders. Do you have what part of your process can you keep the same versus having to morph to every builder's process? Walk me through a little bit about how you do sign offs, decision making, and how you integrate with builders that do things differently than you.
What we do is we usually have our finish schedule, and we used to say, whatever you want, you know, Mark Williams building, we'll get our all of our selections and put it into your Excel spreadsheet or your builder trend or whatever. And we found that that doesn't work, because it's all different. And ultimately, it seems like the project manager or the supervisor wants to take our information and input it themselves, which makes perfect sense. So we've just kept our plumbing specs and our finish schedule and all of those things, uh, in our own little system that we have, and then we just pass it on to the builder. And then if we're approving cabinet cabinet finishes, and then strike offs and things like that, we assign it, and then we take a photo and send it to the builder. So those are all sign offs when the client has approved it. So it's pretty simple, actually. And by that time, we have this great trust with the client. It's usually an email that says approved. We copy the client, and then we send it to the builder.
We have not had an issue that I can recall offhand, but I could anticipate there being an issue because you do get a high trust. And obviously, well, we all love emails and we
Hmm.
use them a lot. We probably use them too much. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm not that young anymore. I'm 43 now, and I still pick up the phone a lot.
Hmm.
And you can cover way more on the phone
Mhm.
or shockingly in person. There is no substitute for, in my opinion, the bi-weekly meetings,
Absolutely.
both for the client, but we're able to also regulate the client and ourselves, because as we work with multiple projects, having that couple hour meeting in person allows you to really not only show them that you care, but it really lets you get a feeling of things. And where I'm going with this is the sign offs that, and this is what I'm curious, like sometimes a designer can send me something and saying it's signed off. Have you ever run into this scenario or heard of it where, someone says it's signed off, but a client says, no, I didn't sign off on that. And, ultimately our job, as the owners of the companies, we have to diffuse the situation. In
Mhm.
some ways, it doesn't matter if it's been signed off or not. Now,
Mhm.
at this point now, we have a client who's unhappy, and regardless of what happened, whether the process is broken down, and honestly, sometimes even if the client is the one that made the issue,
Mhm.
you and I still have to figure out a way to solve it.
Right.
I mean, do you have any examples that kind of come to mind on that?
Yeah, no, we haven't ever had that. Usually when it's, you know, the client is saying, "Are the drawdowns signed off on?" We say, "No, this one needs a little tweaking, but X, Y, and Z is, so we're gonna send back this one. We need another option." And then we say approved, and then, like I said, copy the client,
Yeah.
copy the builder and the architect, and we go from there.
Yep.
So it is documented that way. There are a lot of emails. We do try to, you know, put it all together in one email of approved items. So there's not too many, but when you do have homes this large, it's hard, but it's part of the process. And that is where my project manager is very good at communicating, filing all the information, electronically, and just getting all this done in a real clear way, which I am not the best at. I'm better at other things. And so that's why we work so well together.
Having a right team. I was looking, so you're a team of five. I was looking on
Yeah.
your website, and I have to commend you for your title making. Because you have the money maestro,
Yeah.
you have the captain, and you have the brand warrior, to name a few. And I was chuckling because I'm like, well done. Those are great names that
Yeah.
convey what they are, but also highlight a sense of humor, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and I mean it's great. I mean, we like to have fun, and we all have our talents for sure. I love to meet in person. I love meeting with the clients. I love all of that. And Luann, my project manager, she is great at communicating and organizing and just getting the details on paper and ready to roll. So
Hmm.
she's great with that.
Would you say you kind of take the visionary seat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's yin and yang there with yeah, she's my integrator for sure.
Yeah, that's wonderful. One of the things you had mentioned was, elevating this experience, and you had highlighted this concept of always sourcing. Um, I know there's High Point and these different showrooms. You already talked about, going to, the House of Row and, Signature. Tell me a little bit about what does always sourcing look like on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and how does it help you?
Oh, always sourcing, so fun. I would say with Instagram, there's just so many more options to see and find artists, things like that. Also, we were in Chicago in November, and going to Pagoda Red was one of my favorite places I've loved forever. And we bought a few pieces and brought them into our studio. It's a antique Asian showroom that is spectacular. So that was exciting, and it just excites me so much. And just they are wonderful to work with. I highly recommend them. We are heading to Charleston in April, and so we are going to just scour Charleston, which is so fun. I was there a couple years ago and just was so impressed with everything there. And I think my heart belongs in South Carolina
That's
myself.
that's High Point, right?
No, that's North
Oh,
Carolina.
that's North
So
Carolina.
Charleston is closer to Savannah, so just
Okay.
on down. But Charleston is just full of antiques, but just like Urban Electric is there. We're going to tour Urban Electric, their warehouse, and that's where they're out of, which is a great place to spec lights and just fantastic. So I'm so excited just to experience and look at all the architecture. And so that, I mean, you can source anywhere. So it's just so fun to be able to, now at the time in my life, our kids are a little older, and so they're not needing um, me as much, and I'm able to work more and work for the business and have it grow. And now's the time, and be able to also travel and seek some more things. We were in Italy this past April, and just obviously beautiful
For
things.
work or for play
We
or
were
both?
seeing my daughter was studying there
Okay.
for a semester, so we went over to see her and combined it into a vacation. So
Whereabouts in Italy was she?
she was in Florence, and we kind of hit Tuscany, Lucca, and went up to Venice and then Como.
Yeah,
But
that's nice. Here in the north part, my brother-in-law had graduated from college, and our gift to him was he could go anywhere in the world he wanted for 10 days. But I'm taking him, and so he picked Italy at the same time. We were there in May, so we
oh,
were there just a
wonderful!
month after you.
Yeah, we went. I think we came back May 6th.
Okay, yeah, and that's when we left.
Oh,
So that's
wonderful!
a tag team. Yeah, we went to Rome, and then we are down in Sorrento and Amalfi Coast
Oh,
and that area. And I happen to just love Italy. My wife and I are both trail runners, so actually our 10-year anniversary. Well, actually it was this last year, but I think we're gonna do it on 11. The plan is to go and do a trail run over there, and you can kind of go in the northern part of Italy, like the Dolomites, where you
yep.
kind of just north of Lake Garda and Como in that
Oh,
area.
beautiful! Yeah,
So
it was wonderful. And I had been before. We went to Rome maybe 15 years ago, and then I was lucky enough to go to Italy when I was 16. And so it's fun to kind of see it how different Italy looks when I'm not 16.
isn't it kind of inspiring though when you go to, I mean, that's what I love about travel. Not only you talked a lot about sourcing and kind of learning and evolving and let's say staying fresh in design. I find that every time you kind of get out of the grind, not even if it's not architectural, but in this case Italy is so full of architecture,
Hmm.
and while we don't certainly build, or I haven't built any really
No.
marble-esque style homes, it's thinking about how long things last is something that you cannot travel in Europe and then come back here and look at the homes that we build. And we build gorgeous homes.
Hmm.
And, I think, let's call them stick frame. I mean, we're the best stick film framers in the world, in
Hmm.
my opinion. But we also, a lot of our families only think about things, for the time that they're in it.
Hmm.
And, they look at things a lot differently, like generations
Yeah.
of longevity. And so I'm really impressed, like Trevi Fountain, you're just walking through
Oh,
eating some gelato and you're like, oh, I think that's the most famous fountain in the world. And then sure enough, you do a Google search and you're like, yeah, there's a reason there's 500 people, no, literally 1,000 people, taking pictures of this place. And you're like,
oh,
where in the United States do we have something like that? Now we have different things, like our natural beauty is maybe
of course.
unsurpassed. I mean, the diversity in the United States is pretty incredible. But I always come back leaving super inspired to kind of level up my game in terms of architecture and things that I want to do. Do you feel that as well?
I do, and I actually feel a little bit more relaxed about using materials. Our last night there, we stayed in Florence, and we actually stayed in Florence for maybe a total of 8 days, and we almost felt like locals. We knew, you just familiar places, and we walked through a, a square, and there were bronze greyhounds, and the way they were, it was just beautiful. They were huge, and we went to this little restaurant, and it was spectacular. It was outside. It was perfect weather. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and went into the restroom. It was the most spectacular bathroom I've ever been in. So I'm in there just taking pictures and things like that, and it was just like a raw rock, trough, and then they had a chandelier that wasn't centered, and this just gaudy mirror, and it was just spectacular. And I just thought, and the way they did it, it was beautiful. And was it perfect? No, but it was my favorite, bathroom I've ever seen in my life. So it just gave me permission to think outside of the box, look at textures and materials. And I do think there's a place for man-made materials, of course, but I'm a lover of natural materials, and that includes, non-performance fabrics such as cotton, linen, wool. There's really nothing like them, and in my heart, I think that's where I would be. But my clients don't always need that either, so I do need to be able to be knowledgeable about things like performance fabrics and, um, all of the the Cambrias of the world and things like that. So there is a need for those also, but just in my heart, I was just like, yeah, that's where it's at, me personally. So I mean, there's just different thoughts on all of those things. But when I left, I just was like, hmm. That's kind of stuff's been around for a long
I
time.
mean, it fits with your earlier comment about, the curated,
Mm-hmm.
design that you even feel passionate about. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's something about organics that are warm and inviting
Mm-hmm.
and, kind of permission to fail. And I think I was going to actually talk about this at the beginning, but well, now is a great time to bring it up. I think you have, other than maybe Nike's Just Do It, I think you probably have one of the best bumper sticker slogans of all time. So maybe I won't ruin it. Why don't you tell the audience? I think this is my favorite motto.
It is burn the candles, use the china.
I love it. I mean, that says everything you need to know about Renae Keller, as well as your design style. I mean, you just spoke to about how much that bathroom in Italy, because it wasn't perfect, it was organic, and I'm already picturing, what it must have felt like and what the materials are. But it really is summed up perfectly in that quote.
Yeah, yeah. It isn't perfect, and it's natural, and it just feels good. And I think if you like something, if you're passionate about something, use it. It doesn't have to be grandma's whole set. It can be just the saucers. Or if it's a saucer for your basil plant and it was a favorite plate that, your husband had or something as a child, or maybe it was the one that you set out for Christmas cookies or something. I don't know, but it's just amazing. I think making an experience out of everyday dinner, burning those candles. And by the way, I did bring you a candle.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'll
It's
burn it.
yes,
My
it's
wife burns a candle every single night, and I know because I have to blow it out every single night, or our house is going to burn out.
yeah.
Every single time I come home from like running or hockey or some late night sport, and I'm like, she'll be asleep, and there'll be a candle burning. I'm like, what? What if I didn't come home?
Well,
Now it's fine. It's in the middle of the table. It's fine.
well, maybe she thinks that if you're going to be sweaty or the
Yeah.
kids are going to be sweaty,
Good
you
point.
might smell.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It's fine. Our house is not burned down yet because I'm a avid, blower out of candles, I guess. But it's funny because we stayed at a place in Oregon years ago, and I forget what kind of her core belief was, but I've never seen a house with this many candles. Honestly, I'm shocked that the house was still standing, but she probably had 100 candles. She lit them every single night.
Ooh.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was a big kind of a sprawling open house. And but she left all the melted wax. She had big trays, and she would have all these candles kind of just, kind of clumped together. But it had this incredible earthy vibe that I'm guessing you would love. I know I loved it. I was
Yeah.
like, this is unique. I have never taken candle burning to this level
Oh.
before, but it'd be right up your alley.
Yeah, I just think it feels good. It's warm, it's sensual, and I think smell has a lot to do with it. I'm excited. We are coming out with a candle line.
Are you
So
really?
yeah, yeah,
This is perfect.
yeah.
Are you going to come out with a China line next?
Maybe that I never thought of that. Maybe
What?
yes.
You've never thought of
I
it?
have. I've never thought of that. So I
Well,
get.
let me know if you need a consultant on that. But you definitely need a China line.
Oh well,
And then you'd hand out a China dish and a custom candle with it to every client.
this guy just gives lots of ideas.
See?
Never stop marketing.
Just go with that. I love that idea. Well, one of the things you really highlighted here at the end that I think is really important and something that I certainly gravitate towards is, as a builder and as a designer and really being the home space, it's so personal. It's so emotional. And sometimes, on the podcast, we talk about some of the negative. I mean, it's in the sense that like being an entrepreneur, like it's hard, like running a business is really hard. And take that aside, it's really rewarding when you can deliver a house that's where they raise their family. They have probably the biggest moments of their life is in this home, creating lifestyle memories. And I love kind of the ethos of who you are as a designer is we're this is not our home. We're going to leave a part of ourselves in your home, but we really want this to be a home that has a story to tell. And I think the homes that I'm most attracted to when I go to them is not the ones that are the most beautiful or the most perfect, like you already talked about, but it's the ones that have a story. Um, I don't know. I guess it'd be really interesting to sort of reframe home construction and architecture in the sense of like what is the story we're trying to tell, and how is the client and all of us a part of that story?
Yeah, and I think making sure that it feels like the clients when you walk in, whether it's the front door, the mud room, or there's that secret room that grandpa can fiddle around with whatever, or the train sets there that always comes out at Christmas time, and maybe it's an easy storage area so they don't have to recreate it and fold it up and it takes 4 hours. Maybe it's an easy in and out. Just creating simple things like that so their life is easier and they don't, have time to do that, or they don't want to do that. So just trying to make life a little easier step by step, and keep their artwork up. Maybe their artwork needs reframing, or maybe it's close to a window and they don't want it to fade, so we'll put museum glass on it. There are definitely things that we can do and suggest and embrace with them. And so we've reframed dog what are they called? Collars. Yeah, dog collars. If a dog's passed away, and made a collage of things like that. We just hung pictures last week of Henry, the dog that passed away, and it was very sad. And in little kids' artwork, and now they're 16 years old, and it's just wonderful. So we just really try to listen to our clients and make their house theirs. And we just love to be invited back for coffee or drinks or anything like that, or the next round of design.
I feel like being the interior designer, to me, it's one of the more glamorous parts of building, because you get to be kind of like, the fun squad, I think, because if you have, I remember even looking back early on in my career, 20 years ago, you build a house, and I used to take photos of the house before there was any furniture in it. Now it seems crazy that I did that. It was just an empty shell. It was nothing. It was like, it'd be like giving someone a cardboard box for Christmas. I mean, there's no character, there's no love, there's nothing. Man, did I not know what I was doing. And, but I feel like the designers, they add the color. And I've had earlier on in my career, I had clients that would say, we don't want to pay for the interior designer. And I said, that's, now in my career, I won't even do a job without one,
right,
for two reasons. Well, actually, there's multitude of reasons, but kind of the top primary ones is it's not going to be the right clientele, because they're not going to appreciate really all the other things that we're doing for them as well.
Correct.
But also, I feel like the interior designer, maybe better than anyone else, really has a pulse on the client's temperature. And what I mean by that is I love it when my clients will give me, or when my interior designers will maybe give me a call or send me a text being like, Shelly or Sarah, whoever, I think they need an extra reach out, or I think that, something's going on, they need a little extra attention, or, this came up. I feel like your industry, and you specifically, have such a great attention to how the client is feeling, that sometimes, because the build process is long, right? Sometimes it's a year, 2 years long. I mean, it's hard to have your tenants up all the time. And so as a team collectively, I feel like I found great value in the interior designers sort of fulfilling that for me specifically.
Absolutely. It's part of the teamwork. I think the collaborating, and even usually the architect has that first role. It seems like, even though we're all part of the team, it seems like whenever the interior designer comes in a little later, we're always trying to play catch up, and we didn't quite know about that first scheme and things like that. And then we suggest the first scheme, and they're like, "Oh, we already thought of that." And you're like, "Oh, well, thanks for telling me." So it's best if we all come in together, and it may seem wasteful for all of us to be around the table together, but it's really not. It's actually more efficient, and we are all like gathering information all at the same time, and we can hit the ground running.
I 100% agree. For those that would, like to reach out to you, what are the best platforms for them to get in contact with you, either to just network, have a cup of coffee with you, or, to hire your services and find out what you do?
Yeah, I would say either Instagram, which is Renae Keller Interior Design, or our website, which is renaekeller.com, and Renae is spelled Renae. And that would be wonderful. So either DM me or go to our website and hit the submit form.
Perfect. We'll have everything in the show notes. And Renae, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and I appreciate it. And
Great.
We'll see you around town.
Thanks so much.
Very good.
All right,
Thanks
bye-bye.
for joining in. We're excited to announce that our first live event is now on sale on our website. On May 16th at 5 o'clock in the North House in Minneapolis, the Curious Builder is going to be hosting Brad Levitt, Nick Schiffer, Tyler Grace, and Morgan Molitor to a panel discussion about networking, marketing your brand and your business, and all things related to the Contractor Coalition, which is coming to Minneapolis on May 15th through May 19th. If you're looking at leveling up your business, I'd highly recommend attending. For those local here in Minnesota, it's right in your backyard. This would be an amazing time to network with some of the nation's best builders with the best building practices around. Join us for the Contractor Coalition, or if you just want to be there for one night and enjoy the networking and meet these superstars from around the country, Again, that is going to be May 16th at 5 o'clock at the North House. Tickets can be bought at the contractorcoalitionsummit.com as well as the curiousbuilderpodcast.com. The Curious Builder is proud to announce that on our website, we now have a shop or a merch page. If you want to support the show, it really makes a big difference. A lot of people over the years have asked, how can we support your show? We really appreciate the content. So head to the curiousbuilderpodcast.com, go to the shop page, and right now the shirts will be on sale for pre-order until May 1st. It's the only time we're going to do it. So if you want your limited edition shirt, head there now, and we appreciate the support. Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.